very fragrant for your body. So I'd like to request we should be abandoning the idea of a bouquet, suffocating the flowers. I remember my grandmother used to say, the flowers are collected from the tree only for 3 reasons. That you put it to the offer it to the Krishna, or the lady puts it around her hair, or you put it in a flower vase. So having said that, I'm indulging in sharing this with Kiran because he's a friend and he's concerned, and we all are concerned for various corrective measures because I think we have gone wrong somewhere drastically all over the country. I had the food, the lunch now, and I was told a caterer has come from Kanpur or somewhere. And it's amazing that the Odisha chapter gentlemen should have looked into it. The food should have been from Odisha. Frankly, all the art forms are meaningless unless we have quality food. Food is the essence of all arts. And I'm sure those who are musicians, they know that other than the Riyaz time, all the musicians, classical musicians in our country, spend half a day into cooking, and their chelas and disciples spend time in cooking. Not only that, you'll be surprised to know that, happily surprised, the writer, poet, painter, musician, architects all over the world cook and take great interest when they meet. They don't talk about paintings, unlike dancers talk about dance and performance. All the painters only talk about food and wine. Having said that, that food involves all our sensory organs. And that you all know very well, but it is the essence of everything. And quite often at a presentation anywhere in India or overseas, I normally spend half the time about food. In the sense, not about spicy food, not about, like people ask me, do you cook French food? I say, no, it's à la carte Jatin. So, we are carrying a lot of baggage from the colonial period till today in many levels. I grew up in a little town called Baripada in Mayurbhanj, and the Mayurbhanj was a very enlightened state of Odisha. And I think, other than flying flag of Mayurbhanj, but I must say I had a fantastic, holistic upbringing. And I didn't talk about art at all. I didn't use the word creativity. The art was way of life as it is all over the country, in our families and in our dwelling units, in our society. Unfortunately, it's been withdrawn from our day-to-day life. Hence, you look at dance on its proscenium, on a stage. You look at painting at a gallery and museums. You see, the British did something very good about setting up museums, but they did not realize you cannot take a sculpture from Cuttack and put it in Bhubaneswar. It's out of context, hence it loses meaning. So, I would plead that we should have museums. Museums is not just a sangrahalaya or a storehouse. Museum should be an activity center. So I think we should coin a word, and we should not call it a museum or sangrahalaya, a center where people come and ventilate, people can have a reference point, people can study and learn, etc., etc. So, to a young lady in Bhubaneswar, Nivedita is working on Kaincho, which is the golden grass which is grown in Odisha, Bengal, Bihar, this area of the eastern region. And it's a fantastic, lovely grass. And you make basketry out of it, and the roots are bena chero. In Bihar they call it bena, and khas in North India, which is a herbal thing, which is used for medicine, and also people make chicks out of it, and you make fantastic hand fans out of it. And India is a country which has a lot of romance and poetry in our living, thinking, talking, eating, in everything. And I think in our contemporary time we have lost that romance and poetry and the poetics, the kavitatmak bodh, the sangitatmak bodh, etc. sense of aesthetics. And I think ras, which is rasa, and to be a rasika, rasatmak bodh, I think we have to go to the Gani, the fields where they make the ganne, the sugar cane, and we should have a glass of sugar cane juice, you know what I mean, or a mango juice and an orange juice. And I'm talking of nectar from that. I think it's from concrete to abstract. I have digressed. I was talking about Nivedita. Nivedita is working on that golden grass, and I had requested and suggested that we should have a traditional mattika ghar in that village where this is done, the craft is done, and we should have a museum, come research center, come women activities center, and all these craftsmen, so they could have samples of it, and the younger people can do it. It's been 5-8 years, she has not been able to do it. So my first concern was a museum, lack of a better word, should be in its context. When our great musicians and dancers go to New York and claim they got graving, and like our great sarod player stayed and died there, and was a great musician, but I was very angry with him. And I said, how can you live away from your context and work? And when they get these laurels, it's of no consequence. I genuinely believe in it. I recently had a traveling exhibition from Bombay, went to Jaipur, Ahmedabad, Baroda, now in Chandigarh. And my gallery in Bombay is very angry. They spent a lot of money. They haven't sold any work in Jaipur or Baroda and Ahmedabad. He said, Jatin insisted we are having it. My concern was, once in my lifetime, I want to show in these towns where there are some friends and poets and writers and rasikas. So we were originally talking of rasa and rasikas. Somebody who walks with you, holds your hand, and in all times, then it's meaningful. Now then, let me return. I was talking about my hometown where I grew up. Me and many of my little friends at the age of 8 or 9, we used to carry musical instrument. We used to have something called Kala Parishad, and we used to have music concerts of very, very famous classical musicians. And Sanju, as a little girl, used to come and dance, and Kelu Babu and Chaurasia used to accompany them. So I've known them for more than 50 years. And so there was music concert in Council Hall. The Council Hall with Italian marbles and chandeliers and beautiful mahogany furniture. You have a club with beautiful rosewood furniture, with billiard table and piano which are rotting with white ants. You have a beautiful Jagannath temple which is clean, where the musicians play and the arati, and you rush because your father or your mother or grandmother is going, so quickly wash and put on a dhoti and go to the temple. So it has, you had a Karna Suddhi, and there were paintings on the wall. Or during Lakshmi Puja, where bronze figurines came out of the basket, bamboo basket. Even the bamboo basket is beautifully designed. It comes out, and with turmeric and ash, it's cleaned up and shining as gold for puja. And things like that. Or a Rani Bagh of 100 acres of land by the riverside, with Italian ceramic stools, and any kind of fruit and a flower that you mention in the tropics is there, and zoo, and now it's raised to the ground, and my children say, no, tum aise hi, you are showing off about Mayurbhanj. So if you grow up with dance and music and temple and arati and Devi and Shiva Mandir and Krishna Mandir and Chandi Mandir and tribal deities under the bamboo bush, and your food. And I had a Kasaka glass where all our brothers' names were engraved, and we had our own Kasaka thali. So we ate in our thali and our glass. And if 40 kilos of fish were caught from the pond, 20 kilos were distributed to not only the family members, to the neighbors. And our elder brothers and sisters, etc., in the evening were doing rehearsal in the outer courtyard of the Sahi, or badminton being played. Are you with me in what I'm saying? So, there was a Muslim sculptor, a modeler, who used to make Jagadhatri and Ganesh and Saraswati Murti. You know? And so this kind, and we have a church, we have many temples, and we have a mosque. So it's a very holistic. And in the middle of the town, there are 3 large ponds at different level. Then you have a lake. And here is Mrs. Venkataraman, Leela. Leela's husband was the district collector there. And she speaks Oriya. And 90% of the Oriyas who go for 6 months to Delhi, they say they've forgotten the language. You know? So, returning to Mayurbhanj. And then the tribal music, and people are returning from the heart. And the heart is full of craft. Hundreds of varieties of terracotta pitchers and pots and handi and basketry of all kinds and jewelry. All these dancers who are getting their jewelry made, they were all available in the heart in Baripada. You know? So, and the synthesis between tribal and the folk, and very thin line between the two, the give and take, and the madal bajake, and then the person and playing the flute and walking back home to the forest, to the tribal areas. Then you have what you call, what's the name of the temple? Kiching. It's a green serpentine stone which is amongst all the Orissan temple architecture. It stands separately. It's a different kind of rhythm and different concept to the temple. So you have the tribals, Orissa full of tribals, tribal culture, tribal music, tribal handicraft, tribal weaving, and the cruelty of Oriyas. The government and others have introduced Sambalpuri weaving to their tribal weaving. We are teaching them Oriya, the tangible and intangible intellectual property that we talk about. The largest variety of tribal pockets of the country are inhabitants of Orissa and the vicinity of Madhya Pradesh and all that, but a maximum here. And they have fantastic dialects and language. And Sita Kanta has worked on this, and Dr. Devi Prasanna Patnaik and a few others have worked on it. Uska lop ho raha hai. And so, when I see galleries and museums and theatre and intellectual discussion and discourses, I find it empty. The real culture is in our rural India, which is eroding. Everybody gone. The blacksmith, the goldsmith, the solapith worker, the weaver, the patachitra painter, and the Ravan Chaya, the leather puppeteers, their children are not learning, ladies and gentlemen. They're all doing something else, IT and commerce, or wearing nylon pant and shirt coming to Bhubaneswar. And people of the villages in India, if you ask where are you from, they say from Lucknow and from Bombay and from Bhubaneswar and so on. They are embarrassed and shy of telling their village. And it's the vulgarity of the government and society, our educationists, we are not looking into it. And where Kiran is doing some special thing in spite of this vulgarity, that it will create shimmer and etc. And I gather that he has now hundreds of other chapters. I will only like to request him that while we are enlarging in chapters, that we must also have soul searching. What is the purpose and how can we renew it? How can we polish it? How can we evolve it? Are we going somewhere wrong? Etc. And one of them is like food. You know, one of them, like I must be very honest, I wanted a dancer and a musician and a poet and a patachitra painter in my workshop, which I mentioned. And I think it's necessary because you'll be surprised to know, forgive me for saying, 90% of the musicians and dancers have no idea about architecture and painting and sthapati, etc. in general. And vice versa. And I think the time has come, we have to look at, and let's forget about the Western paradigm. In my art center that I'm building here, I want to collect all the books on Indian art first. Then I look at the West. I want to be parochial, you know. So, once somebody phoned me from London and said, do you know somebody who has got Daniel? I said, who is Daniel? He said, oh, you don't know Daniel? I said, I know, there were illustrators with British Army, uncle and nephew, but what about it? No, but they're fetching very high price. I said, do you know somebody called Ramkinkar Bej? He said, what? It's a tongue twister. Now, Ramkinkar Bej was the Renaissance artist of India within the last 100 years, who lived in Shantiniketan, did not have a one-man show to his credit. Now, I want to return to another thing. Whenever we will somebody is discussing, say while I'm talking, I would like to request a couple of microphones in the audience. I do not want to go on my rambling. I want participation. The subject is important. The person who is speaking is not important. Number one. Number two, there should be no introduction to that person be given. Once in Cambridge, in England, I was talking to only art historians. And I said that art historians of the West have destroyed the pleasure of looking at a painting. And they were all red-eyed. So I said, the reason is, you are all the time talking about the size, the period, who has done it, and how famous he is, etc. Then the whole pleasure of the drasa is gone. So I would like to request in future, wherever we all are having a discussion, the subject is important, the person is not important at all. And in that subject, let us all contribute, let us all have the rasa aswadan, let's all share. That's my concern. Now, I'm a contemporary artist. And as I mentioned by Mayurhanch, one thing I've left behind, that I had a guru when I was 8 years old, called Biranchi Narayan Mohanty, and I have not met a person like that in my life till today, who was a headmaster of a primary school, who did clay modeling, who knew painting, who could play mridangam, who knew all the Vedas and Upanishad, who taught yoga, who made lovely food, and in a handkerchief-sized garden, he had all the herbs that you can name. So that was a kind of holistic, we were very lucky. And then when I went to Bombay, it's another journey from the east coast to the west coast, from fish and rice to fish fry and beef steak. But one was very lucky that there were stalwarts in dance and music and painting and architecture and science and physics and mathematicians. So Dr. Bhava, I'm 20 years old, will come and see my drawing exhibition, who is to paint every day, and he will come and pat at my back and say, Mr. Das, will you consider come and see my paintings because I like your drawing, over a glass of sherry? And I didn't know it was sherry. And as we walked in the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, he will pick up a piece of paper, put it in the pocket. Ganda rasta mein pada hai. Then you will tell the Mali, wo paudhe ko pani chahiye. And he was a Renaissance man. You know? So we have had some fantastic people in our country which are still there, tucked away maybe in some small town. Somebody would have got a Nobel Prize for something, and he was in Tamil Nadu somewhere, he didn't have a typewriter. He couldn't, and he gave it to somebody to type, put it in the computer, it was late. So, we have guna. We have knowledgeable, sensitive, intellectuals, learned people, which are diminishing. And what did not happen for hundreds of years, it will happen in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And it's quite a dangerous movement. So let us harness, let us share, let us restore, let us preserve our tangible and intangible intellectual property. First, now quite often, forgive me, dancers, they might throw stones at me, quite often people say, I'm doing new innovation, I'm doing experimentation. A lot of artists in every field talk about this. And creativity and art. I never use this word, art and creativity and inspiration and mood. You go to the studio and work, like a scientist goes to the laboratory and you work. What are you doing? I'm working. If when you don't exhibit for a long time, many people in Delhi ask, hello Jatin, are you still painting? Because they think somebody is painting only to exhibit and sell. So innumerable wrong messages have gone to the society, to the government, to the public, to the families. Nobody is studying humanities. They all go for commerce and IT, you know. And there is also a mindset. He's an IS officer, he's an engineer, he's a doctor, he's an architect. Oh, ye to artist hai, haan, theek hai, you know. वो रंग बंग कुछ ऐसा करते हैं. And especially in the contemporary time today, all over the country, lot of young artists, they call themselves artists, and who is in second year, third year, or just come out, calling himself an artist and doing conceptual art and installation, of which the public at large do not understand, and the galleries are promoting, and they are into multi-crores now, promotion. So there is a misnomer, recently in America, a lady was looking at a canvas which was blank, and they both were whispering, what is this, that it's in a museum, So a lot of people are shy of asking what is what. Now, that's the situation from a bunch of flowers, bouquet, to our food, to our conditions, quite often. So in my house, many musicians have come and sang. And some of them ask, for 10, 15 people sitting, they ask for a microphone. And all the Western music is done without microphone. I have listened to Bade Ghulam Ali Khan in CJ Hall in Bombay with no microphone. And all through night we have sat through in Rang Bhavan in Bombay till morning. And you go at 5 and go back to the hostel. At 7:30 you go to your class. You do a course and then you go for painting, etc. So somewhere we're also being spoiled, and also with inferiority complex we imbibe various gadgets and this and that and miss out on the essence of art and life. Now, when we talk of art, I think very little input is given by our gurus, our teachers in different disciplines of art. The life is more important. The nature is more important. And from the nature you imbibe dance and music and painting and science and everything. Then another wrong notion, the art and science are two different things. In our country, the whole tradition, there is no separation between art and science. And the most modern concept of the world also, this is both sides of the coin. It's not both sides of a coin. It's like sugar and coffee and milk. It merges. One cannot do without the other. Now, that is the situation. Our syllabus in art, let me start, say, art at home. Let's go through that. Art at home, art in primary school, art, when I say art, all forms of art at the university level. Art at home is gone. It's television, yeah? And even radio is gone, where you used to listen to fantastic classical music. And television, your media is newspaper and magazine, and people don't have garden, people don't eat good food, people don't look at anything, So, art at home. Or you are a sophisticated upper class where a little child is drawing on the wall and say, "Ye bachcha to hamara diwar kharab kar raha hai." So one day I told at a friend's house, I said, put a scroll of paper, roll. The child of this height can reach about 3 feet maximum. So put a rule, put a blackboard for the child to draw. Today with the workshop the last 3-4 days we are doing, I'm telling them to draw with a chalk on the floor. We got some slates. Slate. I don't think modern boys and girls know anything about a slate. You don't need paper, you draw and wipe it. I'm very saddened and depressed in the condition all over the country. All over the country, the situation is very, very dangerous. Kiran is doing something wonderful, but I have something, daggers at him, because he only is talking of music and dance, the performing arts. And there's a little flirtation with the visual arts. And I'm sure you know about the Vishnu Dharma Uttara, as you know about the prince going to learn from one guru, and the guru, बच्चों के लिए बोल रहा हूँ, गुणी लोग तो जानते हैं, that the prince goes and says, I want to learn painting. So the prince says, "Acha, you want to learn painting, then go and learn sculpture." Then he goes to say, you want to learn sculpture, then learn mridangam, etc., etc. Then the child, the whoever come to learn has been put to kapda dholo, पौधे में पानी डालो, look after plants and animal and cook, and not even cooking, and kapda dho. So one night when this person went to learn music, One winter night, the guru gets up at 2 in the morning, realizing from a distance that this child is concentrating enough in nature and listen to the ripples of water and the wind and the trees flowering, which he put the sapling, and now he's ready. Then he takes the child, and both the guru and the child go and take a dip into the freezing cold water and sit on the rock and say, now you do sa. Let's see. And he does it perfectly. So, mera anurad hai ki all this, there's nothing wrong with our young people. First of all, the parents need a suddhi, mana suddhi, karna suddhi, and every suddhi. Then only the children will be wonderful. But in this hodgepodge, you see, ours is a great country in the world. I think it's the greatest country, I'm not flying about our country, the flag, but this is a country, so many languages, so many food, so many climatic conditions, so many crafts, so much of dance, music, theatre, architecture. The range of architectural paradigms that we have in our country, you will go mad. So one day I was going with an architect on the hills, and I said, look at this pine tree and its branch. Look at the cantilever, how it swings, the branch. Even the architect don't look at it. A friend of mine who's a very, very big neurologist in a medical institute in Delhi, he said some architect designed where the trolley cannot go through the door. And so on. Now, my request is home, art and culture at home, sanskar at home. Let's not use the word art. Then in primary school, let's all concentrate in primary school. I would like to request, next time if you do anything, do it in a little school. Let's get an architect, let's get a civil engineer, dancer, musician, poet, painter, architect, everybody. And that school during the stay, do a program where you can spend 2 months, small group of people, somewhere one way. But in that school, let's indulge, renovate, restore, and embellish the school. And believe me, I'm an overindulgent person. Once the education secretary in Delhi told me, I want you to do a workshop. We have got this, imbibed this now, lecture, workshop, seminar, interactive session, vagara is a language, hai na hamara. So when the education secretary said, I blindly put my finger at the lowest bit of India. So I said, here I want to go, unknowingly. So it happened to be Shimoga. Shimoga and Karnataka, where Anantamurthy and all these people come from. And it so happened that I said, oh, my friends are also here. I and poet Prayag Shukla, we went to Shimoga for 15 days. And we did just 2 of us. But before going, 2 months before that, I told the education secretary, I will not take a penny, but everything I asked should be there. So I said, I want a bulldozer, I want 2 tractors, 5 lorries, a blacksmith, carpenter, etc., etc., etc. But you get the building repaired, which will take longer time. So this was done. Believe me, everything was done, and we had about 200 workers. The district collector came to see me, so the teachers and me and students, we stood in a line like an army, and we cleaned up the 35 acres of land by picking up things, Shramadhan. And we indulged and did this. And then we made some jhula in the campus. So everybody was whispering, "Ye to artist hai, painting mein hai, kuch baat nahi kiya," and he's talking about cleaning and garbage cans and picture hanging, etc., etc. So my request is, because if you don't have socks, you can buy. But if you don't have any of your garment, you don't know where to start. So that's the situation in our academic institution. We are khokhla. Many people are saying, do you know Raza's painting got 20 crores in an auction? So say, oh my God. So all the richies and affluent families' children are now going to Sotheby's and etc. auctioning houses to learn art history quickly. And everybody talking of art investment. You cannot imagine, you dancers and musicians, you are at a very poor condition. The painters community are doing fantastically well. Hello, don't disturb. Hello, good morning. इसको कहते हैं रसभंग. So it's, don't do rasabhanga. I have seen many very famous dancers at a performance in Delhi. They want to come to the front row and sit so that everybody can look and do Rasabhanga. Anyway, what was I talking about, lady? What was I talking about? You with the glasses. What was I talking? Good morning? No, you don't have to get up. It's not a class. What was I talking about? She was sleeping and dreaming of our friends. Yeah. So now everybody wake up. Now, please, I want to request you, next time you do something, do yoga in the morning. Forget about dance, music, etc. Nonsense. You know, a lot of our young people are spineless. You know, koi baitha hua hai, mare hue hain. Kyun? Huh? Nee, why? No. Hello, good morning. I have left an exhibition in Chandigarh, and I'm not joking. And I've come literally next morning. I slept at 3 in the morning after a big party of my opening. I came next early morning to come here. So I'm not joking. I'm sorry. And we must share. So, hello, good morning. What was I talking about? Kya bol raha tha main? Can somebody give a cue? Who will be the sutradhar? No, before yoga. Auctioning houses. Auctioning houses. Okay, shush. Now, do you know? So everybody, there are 285 galleries in Delhi alone. Okay? Every woman, 99% of the gallery owners are women. Rich women have nothing to do. They started in a garage. Now they have lights from Germany and French wine flowing and caviar and all that given. People are buying. They don't know what they are buying. You know, it's like the emperor's robe. Anyway, but having said that, do you know what the situation when I said Khokla? Art at home is not there. Art in primary school is not there. The teacher who is teaching dance or music or painting or whatever is just teaching it because she's doing a job. Or somebody drawing a mango, he said, aam banao. The teacher doesn't take the children to a mango grove. It's a let's eat raw mango with salt and chili. Let's have sucking mangoes. Let's scoop out mangoes and eat. You know? That's how we should do, you know. Now, so it's not there. Would you believe all over the country there isn't a single art material shop worth the salt? Now, all the newspapers which had critics for painting and sculpture and architecture and dance, the little bit. I don't think there is any dance critic of a newspaper anymore, Lila. There are people writing features, but still there, one or two. But there is no Richard Bartholomew, S.A. Krishnan, Jayapaswamy, Chatterjee in Calcutta, etc. They were stalwarts. Would you believe Richard Bartholomew in Delhi for Times of India to get 30 rupees a review? But the editor respected him. If I had a show, anybody had a show, next morning the review appeared without fail. He would not write a review if the work is not good enough. And the review will not be edited other than grammar and spelling. Today, all our newspapers are, they are not 2 or 3 pages, they are 50 pages, full of glossy, full of ugly vulgarity, politics, cricket and model. You know, even in Krishna's time, there must be a Devangana somewhere in the corner of a city. But the whole city cannot be a Devangana. Nahin? The whole newspaper should not be about painting. Likewise, the whole newspaper cannot be about politics or cricket and cinema. So likewise, what I'm requesting and suggesting, there's a time and place for everything. So if everybody is selling at high price, how come a common man doesn't know anything about art? How come our art teachers, dance, music, poetry has to be there? Would you believe that I had mentioned this to Mr. J.B. Patnaik and everyone of the Chief Minister. Art is abolished from schools in Odisha and in Kashmir, in the higher classes. Did you know that? Do you know it's termed as dead subject? These are very alarming things. A place which is called Utkala, Utkrishta Kala, and Udradesha and Kalinga, we show off about Konarak wheel, and Oriyas know only about Konarak wheel, nothing more. I'm sorry. In general. So, patthar marenge. Nee, what I'm trying to say, do you know there is Chausati Yogini? Now raise a hand who knows about Chausati Yogini. No, what I'm saying, no, I want to ask Oriya boys and girls. Chausati Yogini is only 8 kilometers from Bhubaneswar. Do you know all Oriyas say Bhubaneswar? They don't say Bhubaneswar. And 8 kilometers they haven't seen. Because the parents don't take them, the part of the class is not there. It's part of study or excursion or nothing. We all go to Delhi, Bombay, or now they go to New York and Paris for holiday. So, what I'm saying is Khokhla, our ground level is Khokhla. If somebody, you see the conservation work for palaces is done in Rajasthan. So they're fantastic, they're proactive, the intact and the Rajas, the royal families and the government, they want to restore, they're proud of Rajasthan. We have 54 palaces in Odisha. They are in decay. Or somebody who's doing little restoration for business, you know what he's doing? Thoda pota, chuna ka pota laga rahe. And the houses were built with what mortar? Batao, you lady. What was, instead of cement, what was the mortar for binding of int ka patthar ka liye? What? Don't get up. Lime, that's right, lime. Chuna. Do you know cement gets weaker after 50 years and life gets stronger and stronger as it goes? Do you know laterite stone? You know, called the Mankada Pathro in. Laterite stone belt goes from Odisha all the way to Goa, horizontally. And laterite stone, as you dig up, you get to learn from your geologists and others. So if we mingle, not only with dancers and painters, if we take Grahan Karna, Gyan Grahan Karna, the laterite stone is the plinth for all temples because it gets stronger and stronger as it gets oxidized. So returning back to the visual arts, which are selling at high price, there are no art material shop, there are no critics, there are nothing reference, and totally no understanding. It has not imbibed from our culture. I'm very happy that you have called the crafts people here. So the children are getting to see. But do you know, not a single school in Odisha has the input of a crafts person or a dancer or a musician in their school. They're talking of uniform and tie and all this nonsense. And somebody should stand first, should get 94 marks. This is very vulgar. So, creativity for creative pursuit. We need a congenial home, congenial atmosphere, sense of aesthetic in public space. If you are spitting there and we're talking of dance and music, is of no consequence. The other also, there has to be exchange, there has to be intermingling, there has to be a ventilation between. I had once suggested to Biju Babu about 20 years ago. I said, make a campus for dance, music, theatre, painting, architecture at one place and let there be a common library. So the services will be shared. Each one of them, they have no land, each one of them are given 5-10 acres of land. Say, if there is a Odissi Kendra, would you believe not a single architect or a painter or a sculptor has gone there? So it's of no consequence, So that is the situation. We have the Odisha State Museum. We do not have compulsory visit. And it's for a dancer, for an architect, for a poet, for a musician, for a painter to go, because who is a dance student? Raise your hand. Okay, you're from Orissa. I want to get a girl from Orissa. Yeah, also. Say, do the gurus talk to them? Say, give me an archaic posture of Vishnu. Vishnu, archaic posture. No, archaic posture. Straight. Vishnu. How is it done in South, in Chola bronzes? So Vishnu. Then what is your Duivangi or Trivangi, whatever you call? Do the gurus, do the Sahityakar, do the artist and the sculptor know there is a Brahma Rekha? And the Brahma, the Duivangi Kala? Ade pache jao. Haan. Divangi. Shift your pelvis. Then do Trivangi. So if I'm a painter or a sculptor or a dancer, architect, you have to know all this. So when you say Devhangi, so this is your Brahma Rekha. We have 27 varieties of Brahma Rekha, which is, in English they call it, in Greek concept, they call it the key line. Do the dancers talk about these things? And quite often so. You don't have to be a dancer, but if you look at sculptures, so or make a gesture towards something. Just make a gesture in any way. Yeah. So when you do a gesture, there has to be a balance to the body. But a body can fly and create another balance. You know? So, thank you. So what I'm saying is there are 27 or 28 varieties of Brahma Rekha, which is the key line. So it is necessary for a painter and a sculptor and a dancer to go together to a temple. And there are some mistakes also in the temple. Because the real sthapati, the master makes, and the many disciples also have done. But they were trained in such a way, there were hardly any mistake. But there are some places there are. You know, because, so it is necessary also to go to an anatomy teacher. And we were very lucky in JJ. We had an anatomy teacher who used to come and teach us bones and muscles. And I used to go and see human dissection and study them more, like stupidly wanting to, keeping Michelangelo as your model. So what I'm saying is, it's necessary that we together, let's go and travel and look at Krishna. Thank you. Would somebody throw some light out of my rambling? Many things that I talked about, these are rambling. But this is not one particular thing. Since there are professionals and mainly students from different discipline, it is, I would like to request anybody would like to throw light on any of the points I said to expound. Please, Leela. Please give her a mic. Do you have a cordless? Cordless hai? Oh. दे दो जल्दी दौड़ के. Leela Venkataraman, whose husband was posted here as an administrative officer. She speaks fluent Oriya and Tamil, amongst other languages. On, yeah, on karo. Kar diya.
Friends, Jatin Das has talked about something which should be very close to the heart of every Indian and certainly every artist. And that is how our art streams do not remain in separate orbits. They all influence other disciplines and in turn are influenced by other disciplines. There is this give and take which is so common in our art forms. And unless you understand this, merely trying to study the technique of a dance form doesn't take you anywhere. The inner understanding comes only when you know so many other things from the soil that go into the making of that particular art form. Today in Kalakshetra, they have started a wonderful experiment which is part of the syllabus. All the students of that particular institution are sent in batches, first to the museums, then to temples all over. And what are they told? Not just to go around the temples and say, oh, it's very beautiful. Here are these sculptures and these various poses. No. They are told to study the temple carefully, to find out from the oldest families living in that temple town as to how their forefathers, if any, were connected with the temple. What is the kind of services they rendered to the temple? How did they think? What is the kind of worship they performed? What are the compositions for that particular deity? Why did they think of the deity in that form? And Leela Sampson, the director of Kalakshetra, was telling me, she says, I just started this, thinking I would put the germs of some ideas into these youngsters. And lo and behold, they have come back with so much information which even I didn't know existed. They have gone to some of the really old families in these villages. They have managed to get all the old folk and find out so many little secrets. Now, when they come back here, we have a discussion. And then they write out what they have seen. And the best thesis becomes a subject of a discussion later on. Now she says, what has happened in this process is that literature, sculpture, drawing, architecture, the poet's word, the dance movement, everything has got a connection which has come together. And these children have developed such an understanding of the kind of culture of the soil that has gone to make this particular dance style that they will never in their life do anything to really break it and hurt it and sully it in any way. They may do new things because after all, even tradition goes through the corridor of time. It doesn't remain in one place. But while it is moving through time, it is picking up contemporary sensibilities. But still its roots are always there, and they know exactly what the core of the form is. And that is the point which was so beautifully explained, I think, today by Jatin Das. Now, all of you know on the first day, Uma Sharma's book was released. Now, what is this book about? I wanted to say 5 lines about it, but I was not allowed to talk that day. This was on a series of films which she has produced. And these films are based on poetry of poets from Kashmir. And these Kashmiri poets' works have been interpreted through different dance forms all over the country. And when she produced this, people were really surprised. Because here is Kashmir, which is having so many problems today. And if the country remains one today, it is not because of our politicians who tend to address us as Christians or Brahmins or non-Brahmins or what have you in separate constituencies, but our poets. We all talk of the Ramayana. We all talk of Mahabharata. Here was Jayadev, who was born in some corner of Odisha. Everybody talks about Gita Govind today. Everybody sings it. Everybody recites it. Everybody dances it. Why? Because these are the people who gave us the thought, the philosophy which has held this country together as one. And it is so important to know what they are doing. So the voice of the poet, the sensitive voice from Kashmir is so important. And when we take that and we translate it into the form of dance, we realize that this country is knit together. It comes together. It is not unity in diversity. It is unity through diversity. And this is one of the very essential features of Indian culture, that all have to come together. So please don't only be a dancer or only a musician or only a poet or only whatever. Try to learn everything and find out how the correlation is and what your soil and its culture really mean. Thank you.
I have some visuals of pankha, hand fans, what you call in Telugu Vishanakara and Vishari, pankha, binjana, binjani, Vyajanam. So I have a large collection of hand fans for 27 years. Originally, I'm doing an art center in Bhubaneswar. The Pankha Museum was supposed to be here at one point. Now, being a large collection, I'm going to donate it to a proposed National Pankha Museum in Delhi, with the government of Delhi do it. And not a single Oriya ever said, "Arey Jatin, I thought you'll do the museum here, why don't you do it?" Nobody said. Anyway, so this is the Pankha collection. It has been shown in many parts in India and abroad. Now, I'm going to show you some visuals quickly, without any narrative. I just want you to look at the pankhas of variety that we have. I think these are Indian fans only. And would you believe I have about 300 varieties of pankha of Odisha. So please have a look and just enjoy the pankhas. Chalo. Oh, this is from Africa. Sorry. There's nothing to say, just look. There's no need for a title and size and medium and period. Just look. Please have a look. Next, please. Jaldi. These are different kinds of pankha. This is from wherever. I shouldn't say. Chalo, dekho. But only thing I should say, sometime I spent a lakh of rupees when I had only 1 lakh of rupees. Some of the royal fans, some of the temple fans, some of the private fans. Next, please. In India, we have 3 varieties in general. That's bamboo and palm leaf and khajur. But of course, there are thousands of varieties in India. But these are the main common pankas. Oh, just a minute. Can you just go back to the previous one? इसका पहले वाला जा सकता है नहीं जा सकता छोड़ दो फिर. This is a fan from Majuli Island in Assam. Hello, lady in green. Do you know where is Majuli? What is Majuli? कौन सा फल का नाम है? हैं? What is the name of this fruit called Majuli? Does anybody know? अरे यार, कहाँ पढ़ते हो? Where do you study? हैं, नागपुर. Majuli is one of the largest river island in the world, in Brahmaputra, and the Shatras, they say Shatra, and these priests make this fan. Originally, they used to make it in ivory 200 years ago. Now they're made of cane. They take about a month to make it, and that's 300 rupees bought by families when they give it as an heirloom to a bride. Next, please. Oh, ये चला गया इधर. ये मोती का है. चलो, next. We're running short of time, so just run through and look at the work. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, Leela. हो गया इतना था ये यार और होगा बस okay thank you that's just a teaser thank you very much
Thank you, sir, for all your enlightening discourse on art and for enhancing our knowledge on art. Now I wish to invite Srimati Ganga Devi of Visakhapatnam to felicitate Jatin, sir. Srimati Ganga Devi of Visakhapatnam, please come on stage to felicitate Jatin, sir.
Bedsheet. How many